today. We're so excited to have you all here. And just as a quick little reminder, the session is being recorded, and we'll also be sending out this recording after the webinar along with other resources for all of the registrants. So stay tuned for that. So going on to the next slide, we have a very simple agenda for today. Perfect. So first, my team and I will introduce ourselves and our company, Activism Always. Then we'll jump into the main part of the workshop, which is how to use social media and data to promote equity in your organization. And then we'll give you some tangible and easy action steps on how to implement these ideas into your organization and your social media strategy. And lastly, we'll take any questions you have for us. All right, so to get started, I'll share about what we do at Activism Always and why we started our company. So we started Activism Always in the summer of last year in response to the murder of George Floyd last summer. We were all deeply affected about this as a team, and we really were driven and passionate about empowering individuals to be able to make educated differences and change based off of data. And so to do this, we started Activism Always. We are a social impact startup focused on uplifting communities through social media insights. We do this through webinars and workshops like this one, and we're focused on building up nonprofits, small businesses, and startups through user-friendly data analytics and services. We also develop technology to automate this process in the form of a product, which we welcome you to learn more about on our website. So now to introduce myself, my name is Michaela, and I'm the CEO of Activism Always. And I have another team member here, and Chelsea, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Chelsea. I'm the Chief Communications Officer at Activism Always, and I'll also be presenting a bit today. Another one of our team members, Juan Nguyen, is also here. She's a Chief Information Officer at Activism Always, and I think she will be popping in just a moment. So really happy to be here and to speak to you all about the subject.
All right, thanks so much, Chelsea. So we will move on into data democracy, and I'll let Chelsea take it from there.
Yeah, so let's get started. However, before we get started, we would love to learn a bit about you all that are here as well, and to hear about what you're interested in and who you are. So Mickey will be posting a poll that we would love to have you spend a minute to fill in.
We're actually, unfortunately, running into a few technical difficulties, so we'll revisit that poll a little bit later. So I'll pass it off to you, Chelsea. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for letting me know. So we'll go right into it. So, hi everyone. What we're going to start with today is a bit different than what you might think is related to social media, but we're going to be talking about data democracy as a concept. So this is a little off the path of social media, but we're going to come back right to it. So to begin, we really want to introduce this concept to you. So to start, data democracy can be summed up as an ongoing process of data education and application for all members of an organization. This is basically, as the name suggests, a concept that suggests the democratization of data. So let's go a bit further about what this might encompass and why it might be important to understand. So the process of data democratization, as described by Arpit Chaudhary, can be understood through three principles: empowering employees to feel comfortable about asking data-related questions, providing the right tools to enable everybody to work with data, seeing democratization as data as an ongoing process, which might even require an organization-wide cultural shift. These three principles in the trifecta of data democratization kind of break down the process to highlight how data democratization, which might seem like a bit of a foreign or abstract concept, is actually more aligned with non-technical organizational changes. And this is really interesting because when we think about social media, when we think about how can I get my mission-driven organization, my small business to work with data, it feels very technical and it feels very abstract and foreign, especially if you're someone without a technical background. This concept of data democratization is really about breaking down how we work with data so that even a non-technical person can feel empowered to ask questions about data, to ask questions about social media and technology. So a bit more about data democracy. It's a framework and process that emphasizes the importance of ensuring that people are equipped with well-supported, easily understandable data that can actually help their cause. And data democratization supports the idea of equity among team members when it comes to working with and understanding data, including your social media data. So when people say the word data, it does feel very abstract. To sort of bring it back, data just is like any data point, any information you collect about your organization that you can sort of standardize and understand more deeply. This can be as simple as observations about your brand that you save in a notebook, to your email marketing campaign, to a spreadsheet with all your sales. That's what we're talking about, all that information that you're saving around your organization. So it's a framework that ensures people can be equipped, well supported, and that there's easily understandable data in your organization. So now that we know what it is, why are we talking about data democratization in the context of social media and in the context of working with mission-driven work? So from Activism Always's work, Mickey mentioned before that our background was in sort of doing projects around Black Lives Matter, really having these projects interested in mission-driven work in activism and its relation to data and data science. We found that just talking to nonprofits and talking to these mission-driven organizations, that most organizations in general and their employees aren't doing data-driven stuff. So 60% of data goes unused for analytics, 76% of the global workforce isn't confident with their data skills, but 78% of the global workforce are willing to improve and are interested in this topic, which is why we think it's really important to talk about this concept of data democratization, because this is something that people are interested in, that this is something that can be useful in better understanding what impact we're making, how much engagement we're getting, all those sort of abstract words. But people aren't understanding. So we're hoping to bring some insight around that. All right. So part of data democratization is around the idea that everyone in your organization should be data literate in some sense, and that everyone in your organization should have a sense about what data is, what data they might be collecting, and also have a curiosity and have the trust in the organization that they can ask questions about that. So improving data literacy generally can increase the equity in your organization to ensure that all team members from different backgrounds can contribute meaningfully about the subject. Data and sort of technical work can sometimes feel siloed to different parts of an organization. So data democratization is a concept that everyone in your organization should have a level of literacy that they can at least feel comfortable asking questions and have the curiosity to learn more. It can improve efficiency in that feeling comfortable understanding, interpreting, and using data across an organization can sort of speed up sort of the processes. When things are siloed and when people don't understand certain subjects, there can be more barriers in that way. And really the key here is that we can better understand engagement across channels, across different departments of an organization, or if it's a small organization, just from people to people, we can understand what we're all talking about. And when we can understand each other in that way, we can use these skills across different channels, from understanding fundraising to understanding your emails to understanding your social media, that there's a shared language there that we can use. So I went a bit ahead. So generally, data democracy is about acknowledging and observing the ways in which we interact with data to then begin building hypotheses and patterns about data across channels. So we're trying to level the playing field. A metaphor that we use when thinking about this concept is that we're not trying to get the most tech savvy person in your organization to 100, but we're trying to get everyone in your organization to level 1. So we're going to talk a bit more about how we can understand engagement across channels, and especially around social media a little bit later in this presentation. So our next part is about what issues can arise, talking about data democratization. I've said this word a lot already, data democratization. It's kind of hard to say, and it is very abstract. So what issues might arise when dealing with the idea of data democratization and dealing with data in general? Because it's a lot easier to say working with data than to actually do it. And I think as an organization ourselves, as a pretty early stage startup, as we describe ourselves as, we feel these pain points very similarly to you coming into this presentation. And we are working through these issues and these concepts to better integrate data into our work, to better understand how we as an organization can be more equitable, be more democratic with our data usage. So let's see what are some issues and why it's important to understand them. So one of the big things that come up when people are work with data is that there's a feeling that there's a lack of time. Learning something new or changing existing systems is usually suspended because of day-to-day operations. There are emails to answer, there are webinars to attend. And for a skill like data literacy, the impulse is to sort of write it off as it's too much work, or I have other things that might be more important, that the urgency is just not there. What data democratization kind of emphasizes as a concept is that it doesn't ask everyone to become a data scientist, but rather to be cognizant about how data can play a role. So even small steps towards organizing tools, having check-ins, having people who do have that technical background be able to communicate to non-technical members is the ongoing process of data democratization. So another issue that we've run into is the idea of fear, and that the fear of, especially being a non-technical member, is being unfamiliar with these terms, unfamiliar with these concepts, and being hesitant because of a fear of adapting something and then realizing you've wasted your time, or getting into something and feeling like it's way over your head. And our sort of thoughts behind that is promoting transparency, and understanding that different levels of understanding is completely okay and encouraged. And in this work, we're trying to get everyone, again, it says right there, get to level 1 rather than to get the existing experts to make it to 100. Of course, everyone should be striving to better understand it if it's something that you feel like is really important to your organization. But the fear can be mitigated by that level of transparency and trust that this is something all of us at this organization in this team is trying to work towards understanding better. So now that's a bit about this concept of data democratization that we wanted to share with you all. And I'm going to pass it off to Mickey to talk a bit more about what this might look in process and how this might work around social media.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Chelsea. So before we dive into those action steps, we're going to do a little bit of a revised poll since Zoom didn't let us launch our poll. And so I'm just going to put this into chat. And so our question for you all is, in your opinion, what's the most difficult part of social media? So we have A, figuring out what to post, B, understanding what your audience is interested in, and C, making time to post. So feel free to type in A, B, or C, or all of the above into the chat. Perfect. Thanks so much for participating, guys. Some all of the above, some understanding what your audience is interested in, making time to post, figuring out what to post. So all of it can definitely be difficult, but hopefully these things that we're going to walk through right now are able to shed a little bit of clarity. Perfect. So how can you easily understand your audience through social media data? This is something that you guys all mentioned during that quick little poll that we did. And so just from scrolling through your organization's Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter accounts, there's lots of informal ways to gather data just from casual observation. It doesn't have to be anything complicated like dashboards or spreadsheets, just merely from scrolling through your feed or notification. There's a lot of intel that we can gain about our audience. And this can be super incredibly helpful to your organization. And so two examples of these can be comments and likes. So starting with comments, just from scrolling through your posts, seeing who's commenting, you can ask yourself a few questions. How, if at all, are people engaging with your content? Are they commenting their support or approval about a specific post or area of interest? Are they asking questions? Are they tagging other people? If they are doing any of these things, how are you responding to the comments? Are you liking them? Are you thanking them for like following and supporting? Are you using other interactive posts such as polls or Instagram stories as a way to really get your followers and audience engaged? And it's really important to be able to create opportunities to encourage and promote engagement. And so if people aren't commenting, that's not a terrible sign. It's definitely okay. But just take it as an opportunity to be able to post something like asking a question. What's your favorite like program of our nonprofit that you like to support? Or what's your favorite product if you're a small business? And so just creating opportunities for your audience to engage can really have them keeping engaged with your material. And then also just being more cognizant of your brand overall. And another great thing to examine are likes. So from looking through your post, just scrolling through your Facebook posts, your Instagram posts, you can see which posts have the most likes. And from these posts, are there any similarities? And how do you, if there are similarities, how do you continue and build upon those ideas that quote unquote work? So for example, maybe you have a lot of employee profiles on your Instagram page, and those posts get the most likes. So maybe try incorporating other employee content onto your social media, such as testimonials or quotes or other types of like features. Since you know that your audience likes employee material, you definitely want to be able to capitalize that and just continue with what works. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. All right. So moving on to the next slide. This can all be a little bit complicated. So here are some ways to implement data democratization into your organization. So number one is to gauge confidence levels. So just by talking to your team, sending a quick email or survey to ask them about how they feel about their data skills and what they'd like to learn more about, what they feel insecure about. Maybe some team members are terrified of Excel and other team members aren't really sure how to access those social media analytics. So just by gaining what they're interested in and seeing their comfort levels, it can be a great way to start implementing these things that Chelsea has been talking about. Number two is to refresh basic skills. So make sure that everyone is familiar with the basic tools that are vital to your organization's operations. This could be Excel, this could be Gmail, Google Drive, any of those things. Make sure that everyone is at that level one that Chelsea mentioned, so that they're all able to move forward and move on to slightly more complicated things, but everyone's comfortable on that basic level. So number three is to lean into role requirements. So the idea of this is to hold a data academy for staff to learn specific data related skills for their positions. So depending on their different positions in their organizations, there may be different data skills that they need to learn. And so being able to divide that up and make it focused to their job functionality can be really helpful for employees or volunteers to understand how data interacts with their job. And then lastly is to share results. Learning a new skill can definitely always be scary, but being able to demonstrate the impact of learning this new skill can be very motivational, inspirational to your employees and encourage them to keep on learning and practicing these skills. And so we have a little bit of just something to keep in mind as you go through this process, and that it is exactly that, a process. Even if you're a big or small organization, whether you're a nonprofit, a small business, or some other type of mission-driven organization, you should always be working towards integrating analytics into your work, but it can be small steps. It doesn't require everyone to become a data scientist or to be able to code. It's just getting everyone to that level one, like we mentioned before, instead of having everyone be experts or getting the experts up to level 100. All right. So we moved through that pretty quickly, but luckily that gives us a lot of time to answer your questions. So thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. We would love to keep you updated and engaged with all of the social media tips and free events that we have. So feel free to scan the QR code to subscribe to our newsletter, or you can just go to activismalways.com/newsletter and follow us on social media, where we post lots of other tips and templates and other free resources for the mission-driven sector. And so now we have our Chief Information Officer, Hua, who is our team's data genius and will gladly answer any questions you may have. Feel free to unmute or type in the chat.